shared. Man, awesome job, you killed it. It's so powerful to be reminded that success in life is gonna be fleeting, but what lasts is when we find our purpose. So I'm gonna need you guys' help tonight as we welcome up our last speaker. This guy is absolutely electric. Come on, let's make a big welcome for Mr. Anthony Trucks. Come on.
Good evening. Hey, it's a little bit late, huh? Just a little. Wake up! Hey, we have some fun. So, I get asked to come to this camp every single year. And it's funny, they keep on asking me as if I'm gonna say no at some point. Teddy, you gotta stop asking me. Heidi, like seriously, I'm not gonna say no. And then watch, I'll say no at some point. So anyways, we're gonna have a moment here. I wanna share more of me with you, but I want you guys to see you within me, if that makes sense. So I'm not gonna talk at you, I'm gonna talk with you. And if at any point in time, I say something like, hey, do you know what that feels like? I'm gonna say, uh-huh. So let's practice real quick. You know what I'm talking about? Can you feel that? Easy peasy, we got it figured out. So, I'm gonna take it back real quick to when I was a kid. So when I was about 3 years old, my mom said, I no longer want my kids, or 4 of us, and she gave us into a foster care system. Now at the time, this is 1986, I was 3 years old, and it's a very difficult and heinous system. People did some really bad things, we'll call it. Some people, they wouldn't feed me. I was what's called a paycheck. As long as I didn't die in the home, these people got a paycheck for me. So they wouldn't feed me, I would have to sneak out in the middle of the night to go and find food, and if I got caught, I got beat. At one house, they put me in a chicken coop and forced me to chase chickens to find a meal, to catch and earn a meal. And if I got them, I did, but a little kid, I wasn't catching chickens. And I remember watching the face of the people standing there watching me, like laughing at this little kid. There's a family that put me in a shopping cart and would push me down a hill towards moving traffic. And I remember I would hit the curb and go flying out, and thankfully God was there and never had me get hit by a car. One family put me on the edge of a curb, and it was the kid, it was like the brother in the family, put me on the edge of the curb, he pressed down on my shoulders, held the back of my head, and forced me to lick the bottom of the neighbor kid's shoes until my tongue bled. So by 6 years old, 3 years this, I was a very shut down, unhappy, emotionally separated little kid. Now you may not understand what this specific moment feels like, but has anybody in here felt at any point in time like you just didn't matter? Let me get an uh-huh. It's human, right? We all have these moments where like, the teacher's not paying attention to me, I don't feel like I matter. My boss isn't giving me the love for this thing I just did, I must not matter, right? Maybe my wife or my husband, they're not really, I don't feel like I'm getting that love, and I feel like I don't matter. Now typically it happens later in life, but for me it happened as a kid. Now, I'm a man of faith, and I'm gonna share these kind of stories, but I'm gonna end with some. There's 3 stories I wanna tell you, but I wanna end with one lesson that extracts itself from all of those that we can walk away with pretty much. So, I progressed through my life. I get put into a family, it's my family now to this day. I was at 6 years old placed with this family. Now the interesting thing is my family is all white. The only one that looks like me, so pictures look a little bit funny, but hey, I'm a cool guy, family was fun. They loved me like crazy though. We didn't have much, really poor. I mean, so poor that we would get bags out of, we would go to the Goodwill and get clothes donated to us. We'd pull the bags out, we'd get the shirts out. At one point I was in a classroom and I had a black shirt with a logo on it. And it was so wrinkly from the bag, you couldn't read the logo. And one girl named Alicia literally laughed at me. I still, as a grown man, can still feel that. Like I didn't matter. I remember going through this journey with this family and trying to get to that point where I finally, at 14 years old, I had a moment where I got up in court, because I wasn't adopted yet. I got up in court, looked at my biological mom and said, Mom, I no longer want you to be my mother anymore. Now imagine saying it to your parents, kids. It's kind of difficult. Now the thing for me is I'd spent 11 years in the system because she forced me into it. And I got to this point where I could sever the ties and finally get adopted. So the time I knew in my entire life at 14 years old, this house that I just woke up in, this is my home. All you guys know what it feels like to have a home, right? Let me get an uh-huh. I didn't know till I was 14. And I had no clue, but it's the first time like, I mattered in some capacity. Like I felt real good about myself. And I tried this thing that, man, I wanted to do. I wanted to run around and hit people and not get in trouble. Who knows what that is? Football, man. I want to play football. Because I watched all my buddies at school play, but I didn't get to play because I couldn't play, but I got to play. Man, I was geeked up. Go out there, got my helmet on, shoulder pads ready to go, knocked to the ground. I got murdered like every practice. I had no idea what I was doing. Who's ever tried something you wanted to do and realized you were not very good at it? Let me get an uh-huh. for a lot of things. When I first started doing this, I was horrible. Oh man, I couldn't talk. I didn't know what I was doing. I was messing things up. Over time, I've got better. Like video games. How many kids play video games? The first time you pick the sticks up, you suck. All these kids say, yeah. But over time, all those hours in the middle of the night when you think your parents are sleeping, yeah. Don't even let my sons over here. Don't be doing that, bro. You get in trouble, man. But you get better at it. Now for me, I ended up finding a way to get better at football. Here's really the key part of story number one. I got to a point where I finally had these moments where I dug into the game. I got this point where I felt like I got this skill set and people saw me. Coaches saw me, schools saw me. I got recruited by a bunch of colleges. The first trip I took, because when you're actually going to college, they have you come up to the school, take a look at the school. If you like it and they like you, you sign. So I get taken on this trip up to the Washington State University in the Palouse. Who knows where that's at? The Palouse? Man, they had this lie. They told me, oh, it's warm snow. I'm not even kidding. This is legit what they told me. Oh, it's warm snow. They just lied to the California kid like to get him to go to Washington State. Weird. So I get up there, and I'm in this party. And I had this guy who was recruiting. His name was Marty. He was my recruiting guy. Like, he would take me out, show me a good time, so I love the school, hope that sign. I remember he took me to this party and it just felt out of place. Now, what you don't know is at home, in my high school, I had a high school sweetheart named Christina. And I, because of childhood, have a really interesting attachment to the woman in my life. Like, I'm locked in. Like, she doesn't even cross my mind. It says, this is the person, right? So I go up here, 16, I think 17, 18 years old, and I go up to Washington. I'm in this weird environment, there's girls there, and there's all this stuff going on, and then I was like, it felt weird. Out of the blue, this guy named Chris Hurt went to my high school. Chris Hurt walks out of this weird little room. I'm like, Chris, you don't belong here. He's like, yeah, neither do you. So he walked me to the stadium, Washington State Stadium. For some reason, he had an access code, so he took me to the top of the stadium, and he says, hey, I want to ask you a question. He said, are you saved? I said, no, man. I'm kind of Christian. We go to church on like Easter and Christmas sometimes. So I'm like, I guess kind of. He goes, nah. Are you really saved? And I said, man, I don't think so. He says, well, think about this. When you go the next year to college, you're going to get into an environment where what you just saw is the norm. And if you don't have an anchor or a base or something to lean into or to lean on when things get tough, you will lose yourself. It'll get very difficult. So I was like, interesting, man. I didn't accept Christ. At the moment, I just let it sit. Now, I flew home 2 days later, and I land in San Francisco, California, and they always have a guy to take you from the airport back to your house. So I remember I walk out, and like you walk out, there's a whole area, there's cars here, and there's some guy holding a sign. And he's holding a sign with my name on it. I'm like, cool, that's my guy, They got this burgundy kind of looking van. It was safe, just looked a little weird. My name, and I walk up, he goes, hey, Anthony? I said, yeah, Anthony. He goes, hey, let's get in the car, we get my bags, puts it inside. Now here's the thing. The guy was a little bit shorter. He had like olive skin, short brown hair. I always say it, I think people think I'm lying. He looked like Jesus. I don't say it like it fits the story, genuinely did. He gets in the car. I get in the back bar, sit in the center. His first words to me, hey, are you saved? I'm not kidding, it's very weird, right? I go, you know what's funny is I just got asked this question 2 days ago by a teammate. He said, where are you coming from? I said, I'm coming from this college. I'm gonna be going to college next year. He goes, do you mind if I share my testimony with you and kind of give you a sense of who I am? I was like, let's do it, man. So I live about an hour 15 from San Francisco Airport to my home in Antioch at the time. We drive the entire way. He is just pouring out story after story and testimony, and you get that kind of the ramp up that like, this is great. I stop at Ashley Court, a block before my house. He says, hey, do you mind if I stop and pray with you so you can accept Christ into your life? I said, yeah, man, let's do it. So I stop and I pray in the back of a burgundy van, the middle of the night, where the guy looks like Jesus. Hey, he shows up in places you do not expect. First mini lesson. God shows up in way. Right now, for some people, he's showing up through me and the rest of the people here to talk to you. I guarantee someone's here for the first time for some reason, some kid, some adult who didn't expect this to take place. It's like, I'm gonna go, whatever, honey, I'll go. And right now, something's poking at the heart more than it used to or more than you thought it might, right? There's somebody, I don't know who it is. That's how God first shows up. I accepted him. I press on in my life. And I go through a point of, I get a scholarship, I play in college, I have a kid in college, different conversation. I progress on, I get to an opportunity of playing in the NFL. I'm playing with the Buccaneers. Now, Craig may remember this, might have been Drew, I don't remember what I called, but I get to the point of I finally got to this moment Like I'm in the league. I get signed, I'm there, we're at training camp in Orlando, Florida, Wide World of Sports at Disney. I'm feeling good about myself, and I'm there, and all of a sudden I start realizing this is hard. Like, really hard. It's hot, it's 112 degrees. I lost 12 pounds in practice one day. I would walk off the field every step, sweat would squirt out of my eyelets of my shoes. Like, not only that, none of my teammates knew me or liked me. Nobody likes you, because if you get a job, they might not have one. So nobody's helping me. The coaches, every day, I'm gonna cut you, man. Get it right, I'm gonna cut you. Somebody wants your job, man. Get it right and go home. Every day, I'm away from my wife. I'd had a son 2 years earlier, and for me, being away from them was drawn on me. So I remember about 2 weeks into this 4-week training camp, I get this feeling of like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go, I gotta get out of here. So I remember I called up my college coach, said, hey, DP, if I come back, is my scholarship still there? I'm just gonna come back and do school. He's like, I don't know what's going on, but like, yeah? Like, what are you talking about? Just this question. Click, hang up. I called Drew. I think it was Drew, might have been Craig. I was like, hey guys, I know you went ahead and paid for me to train, and you went ahead and got me in here, but I gotta go home, man. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I just can't do it. Like, you know if you go home, your career's done, right? Yeah, but it's not from, I can't. Who's ever felt like something's going so difficult you just want to remove yourself from the situation? Let me get a I want to get out of there. It all just, all of it at the same time. I call my wife. She literally is like, I don't know who I'm talking to. This is not my husband. I was like, I gotta come. I'm gonna be home. I'm gonna see you in 24 hours. We'll figure it out. I can't do it. She's like, no, don't do it. Hung up. I go downstairs. Now, there's a little alleyway down the area where the coaches used to meet. And I remember I'm walking down, and if I'm coming down here, the hallway's there. I remember walking down, and I get to where I can see the coaches meeting in the middle of like double days, and something stops both my feet. And I stand there, and I'm like just rocking. I remember I'm rocking. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hear trucks. Guy named Eric Vance, plant personnel. The guy who, if I had a problem, I gotta go see, but I wasn't looking for him, walks out of nowhere. Trucks, what are you doing? I gotta go home, man. What are you talking about? You gotta go home. I gotta get out of here. It's too, hold on. Let's go walk outside and talk. We go outside, we sit down, we have a little conversation. And he starts asking me questions. He says, man, tell me more about you. I don't know about you. Tell me more about your story. So I tell him the story. And he goes, so you got a son? I go, yeah, man, I had this dog tag that I had got to, because I had this dog tag before I came out. I lost it in practice, and I don't know what it was, but the losing of the dog tag, they had my picture of my son, and just, now I'm missing him, and I can't see him, and this is before the social media stuff. There wasn't like Skype kids, so you couldn't do FaceTime. So like, I don't have the picture. I'm like, it's just awkward. He goes, hey, 10 years from now, when your son asks why you left the game, what are you gonna tell him? I sat with it for a minute. And he said, there's no way you can get to this point in your life, to what you've done, what you've been got. Like, you've built up to this point here. There's people looking at you to do well. You can't walk out on not just them, but yourself. He says, dude, just hunker down. This is what you signed up for. The journey you're on, this is what it looks like to get the dream you want. It's for everybody. You're gonna get to a point where you don't want to do what you gotta do, but if you want that thing, you gotta do it. So I hunkered back down and decided to go back. Here's the thing. Here's where God shows up in ways you don't expect. I get back to the second double day of practice, and I walk into the locker room, and sitting on my locker is the dog tag necklace. Someone had found it from the groundskeepers, asked who it was, somebody knew, and hung it up. I feel like that was a moment where God said, like, hey, good choice, son. He shows up in places you don't expect. Third moment. I progress on, because I'm an adult. And you go through life. I got married, had a couple more kids. One happens to be here. And I get to this point where I'm out of football. I've lost the game. That's a long story that they've all told. I lost the game. I lost myself. Who's ever lost something you've invested so much energy and time and heart, a job, a game, a relationship? Let me get an Felt it, right? I put all my all into this, and all of a sudden it's just gone. I felt that. It's gone. And I remember coming home and going like, I don't have much. I don't got football. My marriage fell apart. I don't got my marriage. I was a broken home. I felt like I was subjecting my kids to the same upbringing I had of not being there. I wasn't a good parent. I wasn't even in shape. I owned a gym, and I used to go to the gym with a hoodie, a 2XL, and cover that belly up right. Anybody got to see that? I was drinking all the Gatorades, going to the store getting chips. It was bad. I lost all the things that made me me, and at one point I didn't want to be here. If this was life after football, I'm like, man, I don't want this. And then God showed up in an interesting way. I wouldn't say the best way, but I got to a moment where I lost my mom. My biological mom, I don't know who she is. My adoptive mom's my real mom. She loved me past my crazy. And unfortunately, she lost a 17-year battle with multiple sclerosis in 2014. And I believe that God showed up in her well before I knew he had showed up in her. He'd been there in ways when no one had to love me, but she loved me. No, she had no reason to stick around and stick to the craziness, but she did. Love me into a different level of statistics. Most people don't know this. 75% of inmates in any prison in America are former foster kids. Like, I've not set out to do very well. This woman, man, she loved me past all this crazy. And I remember getting to the point where she passed away and I was in a fog, a really difficult place, and I had nothing. And to be quite honest, January 16th, 2 years later, I finally woke up and I looked in the mirror and I hated the man looking back at me. I would not want my daughter to be with a man like me. I would not want this little boy to grow up to be like that man. My mom wouldn't approve of it, and my guy wouldn't let me into heaven. So I made a choice. My choice was I gotta find a way to get back to life. And here's what I didn't know. God works in funny ways. My ex-wife, we got divorced. She had a brother who had got her this Joyce Meyer's book. Now her brother, if you know him, it's interesting, like our only, like, I guess, way to make it make sense is he must have got her while breaking into a car or something, I don't know, like, it is just an interesting cat. Gave her Joyce Meyer's book. She woke up one day on her own, separate from me, on a day when she was hungover, she was lonely, and all it was there was a book. She picked it up. God showed up for her. For me, I gotta separate myself from all the ungodly things that were in my life pulling me from him. And I got to the point where 10 months after, it was October 2016, some roundabout way, after 3 years of divorce, and believe me, it was one of those divorces. The pokey back and forth, the custody battles, all the fun stuff. Anybody experienced it? Please don't do that. So, all of that, somehow God brought the marriage back together. I'm now married in an amazing, God-centered, anchored relationship that honestly, it fills me up every day. Is she perfect? No, far from it. But I love her perfectly. And God's the center of it. And I'm going to tell you this, and here's how all this stuff comes together. There's a great verse, it's my favorite, quite literally, John 16:33. And in it, God says, in me, I have peace. I tell you these things that in me you may have peace. In this world you will find trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Very simple, but I say it every year, but I'm serious, I want you to grasp this. What I found is every single moment of my life, God has overcome these things, right? We're thinking, but Ant, you're not God. No, I'm not. But if God lives in me, I can overcome these things. That's it. So when I look at my life, when I was a kid, God was in me. When I was in that situation where I accepted him, he was now in me. When I got to the Buccaneers, God was in me. He was there. He stopped my feet. He sent Eric at that moment. If he goes to the bathroom for 5 more seconds, I don't see him. You know what I'm saying? Like, those moments lined up. The book, my moments of my mom, me sitting there waking up that one day, God showed up. And when he does, when you let him live in you, he shows up and builds the life you've been looking for. So by all means, if you take nothing from me tonight, realize this. It looks like you essentially letting him live in you in a sense of you know what is right, you know what is wrong. Live with that. Learn about him. Get to know, have an actual relationship. And when life comes along, you got all you need because he's overcome the world. Thank you all. Appreciate it.